What's up? I'm Drew Paul Bell, and in this video we have a question from our friend Tommy Hansen. Alright, and so Tommy wants to know if you have to live in a big city to be an architect. And I think to answer this question, I don't know if you're even talking about living in a big city. I don't know, I see Atlanta as a big city. It's probably it's considered a metropolis. And then there's cities I live in Georgia. Okay, so in the state of Georgia we have Atlanta, which is the biggest city. We also have smaller cities like Macon or Augusta and Savannah, which are still pretty decent sized towns, but they still have still have a lot of people there. Then there's also little tiny towns, and there's also little towns where it's literally just an intersection of two state highways and two gas stations, and then a bunch of farmlands and stuff around. Okay, and so I don't know where on this continuum you're really interested in being, but regardless, understanding supply and demand is key. All right, so in a metropolis, in a big city, there's a lot of people that need a lot of buildings, whether that's where they're living, that's where they're working, where they're going to church, or going to the gym, or going out to the bars. So there's a higher demand, and so then there's going to be a lot of architects to meet that demand in a large city. All right, so yeah, a large volume, a large percentage of architects are going to live in big cities, but understand supply and demand. When there's in a smaller city, there's a fewer number of people, which means there's also less architects. So now you have a city that still needs to build buildings. Even if it's some small town in the middle of nowhere, there's still people who need houses and civic centers and buildings that are big enough to house enough people. So you could live in a city like that, and because there's lower supply of architects, there's a higher demand for them. And so then, if you're the one architect or working at the one or the two firms in that little town, then you would get all the business that is necessary to do buildings. And so now you're also right. I mean, this is obviously more complicated than that. I mean, if there's people, I just realized that if there's we in Atlanta, or I work in Atlanta, but yet we still go do work in cities like that. We go do cabins and mountain retreats, vacation homes and event spaces out in small towns. And so you're always I guess you may always have that outside competition. But if you I feel if you fit yourself in a medium-sized city, something like Atlanta or something like Macon, or I've heard Louisville. I specifically read an article somewhere. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up and put that in the description down below, where if you go to kind of a smaller city and you're in a smaller network, and it's easier for you to network and go to some event on a Wednesday night and meet the mayor and know all the people in the city. You can totally run a business like that. I'm a firm believer in you can do anything if you're good enough. So yeah, you can pull it off. The question is, are you going to be good enough to pull it off? And you say in your question that you're interested in getting your architecture degree, and getting your license, doing what you have to do that, and then going back to your town. And yeah, I totally think that's doable. Also, I'd point out that you're not even stuck where you are. I mean, you can operate out of a small city and do work other places. If you're good enough. I mean, if you drum up enough attention from enough attention to get business, then you can make that happen. Peter Zumthor is a perfect example of this. He lives in a real small town, and I think he's in Switzerland, and he's doing awesome work. He's a world-renowned architect, and so yeah, it's totally doable. I mean, you just gotta be good enough to do it. But if you work hard at it, and it sounds like you're just starting architecture, you got your whole career ahead of you. I'm sure you can hustle and make it happen. So short answer to this question is yes. I guess your question was, do you have to live in a city? The answer to that question is no. Yes, you can live in a small city. You just have to find a way to make it work. Anyway, I hope this helps. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and share it. I appreciate the attention, and I'll talk to you next time.